lobby.
Yeah, I don't know why this is happening today. And I just changed my laptop this week. Maybe that's why things are
I
not getting settled up.
guessed again. One more.
Okay, let me see if I
Okay,
can
same.
change meeting options. Everyone. Okay, I did that. So this should not be a problem. Okay, so we are almost at the time. So let's start. So welcome to the 47th edition of our this journal discussion around NAV or BC. I didn't get much time this week, but there were some questions around approvals, and there was a question about some menu suite objects in CL Word and how we can read that. So now, recently, I'm kind of focusing all readings and writings and things from PowerShell. I thought it would be a good thing to kind of walk through how PowerShell can be useful in different situations. And then, I would I would suggest that even for the things in BC, we should start spending some time on PowerShell because PowerShell is super powerful, at least in the BC world also. So even if you are on SaaS or on-prem in BC, there are quite a good amount of things that you can do easily from PowerShell rather than doing them manually. So spend some time over there. In this one, we'll just see an example of reading a file or kind of scanning a file more or less to find out certain things. So let's see. If you are here for the first time, uh, this is the link where you get registered every week. I might change the process a little bit based on the new feature available in Teams, which allows you to schedule a webinar from Teams. I'm still testing it, but maybe I'll change that, but the page will remain same. Instead of going to a Microsoft form, will be redirected to a web page. Let's see how that goes. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to do after we talk about these things today is kind of get a list or titles that you guys would like to talk about going forward. As we were talking, Sam, in the last meeting, if you can just give me some ideas, what would be the topics that you guys will be interested in? And if I know about them, I'll surely do them first. Otherwise, we can, we can surely discuss around things. So even during the meeting, if you think that there is something that we haven't discussed and that seems useful to you, just put it in the chat, and in the end, we can just go through that list together. Okay, so let's go to the questions. The first question that came was from Shahid, and Shahid is yet not here. But his question was that he want to show the approver name in request to approve page as they have if they have multiple approvers for a purchase document. So the requirement is that if somebody sends a document for approval and there are 3 or more or whatever number of approvals required, that person can see on a fact box who else need to approve it after I approve it. Kind of a list of all the people who will be approving this document as I approve it. It seems like a good requirement to me, so I thought I'll play with it in today's call. So let me open my VS Code and we'll try to build this small requirement that Shahid have. Okay, so here is my VS Code. That seems an update. So get that done later. Okay. Okay. Let me zoom this in. can see it clearly. So the requirement, let's try to first understand the requirement in a browser window somewhere here. So what seems to be his requirement is when somebody comes to this page called, there should be a page request to approve, and the person will see the entry that he's supposed to approve, reject, or delegate. At this point, the person should also be able to see in a fact box who else is required to approve this document after I approve it. Okay. So let's download the symbols here. Okay, download it. So the first thing that we need to understand from a process point of view is the data that is visible here on request to approve is actually comes from a table called approval entries, right? Approval entry table have that data. The table have fields like this, the detail of the document from where which is used requesting approval for, and then an approval code, who is sending this approver and who is supposed to approve this, and then other details about when it was created, how much it is for. So our focus should be on the approval entry table. So as he wants to see the entries which are not yet approved, what we'll do is we'll create, let's say, a page first, and I'll use the same number. We'll create a new file, and let's say call it as other approvals. I'll create a page, and that is of type list. Use the same number, and I'll say that this page is called as approvals. And this is based on my approval entry table, and then I only want to show entries which are not yet approved. So I'll filter out this table to only show me entries which are not yet approved. Just trying to reduce the count of entries which will be visible in this page. So let's do that. Not approved. It should work. Okay. And then in the layout, what I want is just want an approver ID. So I'll just add that field. Approver ID visible in all the cases. I don't want anything else on this page, neither the fact boxes nor the actions. The other thing that I'll have to do is add this fact box into that request to approve page. So let's create a new file. Request to approve extension. It's the same number. Extension. Trying to extend the request to approve page. What I want to add on this page is just a fact box. So I'll add, there's nothing right now, but I'll add first in my fact box area. And then I just want to add a part into it, which is my other approver. I name that. Let me see other approvals. Okay. For reasons it's not reading that. Let's see. Okay. The other approval should be a list. Oh, that should be a list part. In that, and what I want here is to link this fact box based on my document type, which is equivalent to the document type there. And the other thing that I want to do is based on my document number, which is also equal to the document number field there. Okay. I'll have to add the application area into it. Let's go ahead and do that. And that's it, I guess. But then how I'll filter out the records between these two is I'll pass the current user ID from this page to that page so that it filters it out on once the records are fetched into this table. On after get current record, let's try to pass the approvers page, and then I need a function there. So let's create a function here. Filter entries and past user ID, which is of type OTP because that's the length of the user ID field in the system everywhere. And then I'll just do a set filter of approver ID because I don't want to see my entry in that list. So I'll just filter it out that it should not show the past user ID. And then you can just call this function from here, enter entries with current record dot approver ID, which is me in this case, which will be the person who's supposed to approve it at that point. So I hope with this we should be able to see some entries which are yet to be approved there. So let's publish this and let's have a look at that. And I might have the setup already done. So okay, we are here. And let me just quickly check my setup. Okay, so I have a setup. If I create it, it goes to approver 1, then to 2, and then to 3. And 3 is unlimited approval. So if I right now send a purchase order, let's pick this one, and request approval of it, it will create that approval request, which means it's pending for approval. And it would have gone for approver 1 user, who is the first approval attached to my ID in my approval user setup. So let's log in as approver 1. And see what he sees here on request to approve. So we just send this, and this is showing that it is need to be set by 1, which is me, which is wrong. Approver 2 and approver 3. Why this didn't got filtered? This should have gone filtered.
Saurabh, just a thought. Instead of applying filter by approver ID there, Can't we do database.username with the current user who is logged in?
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess we should be able to. Yeah, what I was thinking, because the person who is logging in will eventually be the user who will get filtered there, right? So okay, so let's comment this out for a while. That makes sense, because I'll be the only user who is in there. So I should be able to do filter out this page directly.
Yeah.
I cannot do at the source level, right?
Yeah, but maybe in the function where you wrote
On after get
not
record, right?
equal to there itself. Okay.
I can do a trigger on this, right?
Mm.
On after get record, yes, and then filter this out for the current user ID, not equal to current user ID. It's something like this. That seems like if I just do this, this will return me my user ID, right? With the username of the account who is logged in on the current session.
User ID or maybe database.user ID. I think more or less same thing perhaps.
Let's try that. Database user ID. No, I guess that's the global thing that we use, right? Oh yeah, user ID.
Okay.
Okay, so let's test this one. Okay. Can go on the other screen for some reason. And this is the newer one. So let's go back to the home screen and see request to approve. Still shows. Oh, okay. It took some time to refresh it, I guess. But is Shahid here now? Not yet. But I hope this is what he wanted, because at this point, if we see on this purchase order, if I go back and see the okay, where they move that button, they keep on moving these icons. What is that approval button? Not here. Surely I've moved it somewhere. But there used to be an approval button where you can see all the approvers that need to approve this document before it becomes available. Oh, maybe in the order. Yes, here it is. So if you see right now, it says the only entry that is open is for Saurav. Approver one need to approve it, but it normally shows all. Oh, because I'm not the creator of it, I'm just the approver of it. If I sign out from this and go back to my normal user who created it, the person who created it can always check it from that approve button and see who all need to approve it. So this is pending approval. And if you go to the related order approvals, I'll see that all these people had to approve it right now. The first entry is default approval by the same user who created it, and then it is approval 1, 2, and 3 based on the sequence number. So when approval 1 logs into his screen to approve this, he sees that yet approver 2 and 3 have to do it. And the same will follow when approver 2 approves it, he will only see approver 3. So Shahid is not here, but I think this is what he wanted out of it.
If you log in by approval too, what will happen?
At this point, nothing will happen, because if you see what we have done here, is we have it will show him, which is wrong. That makes sense. So I should actually filter it for entries which are open. No, open and created are the two entries, right?
Created.
Only created. Yes. Entries which are only created. Because let me go back to my screen. What is that? If we see right now, this is open.
Created.
And then these two are created. If this gets approved, then this one will turn open and this one will still be created. So if I change my filter here, that it should only show where it is created, then we don't even need to apply this filter, more or less. Because then it only will show entries which are yet to be approved after I approve it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think we also need that. This one in this case. We will control F5 at this point. And this is going out of this user and coming back in as approver one. And go down here and see request to approve. Yeah, I'll only show approver 2 and 3. But if I try with approver 2, this should, as in there should not be any entry on request to approve to start with, right? So if I try with approver 2, the entries page should be empty for me, which means that I cannot see the entry, so the fact box will in any case will not be populating any data because there is no record yet to approve. Because this is free, this will also be empty in this way. But yes, that makes sense that we should actually only filter it out for created so that it only shows entries which are yet to be approved after the first approval or the second approval or subsequently every approval after that. Any questions on this one before we move to next item? Okay. So let's move to the next question, which was again from Shahid. Maybe we'll come to this on this one again if everybody is interested. Otherwise, I can reply this directly to Shahid. What he wanted to know that is there a way that we can have a field to identify what's the status of my approval on purchase journal. So when we talk about journals, there can be two kinds of approval, a line level approval or a batch level approval. And it gets a little bit hard to identify what's the state of my batch approval or line approval. Because if it is line approval, then there are so many lines, and you have to check it per line wise. If it's a batch level approval, still you have to verify that is it approved or not before you actually try to post it. Because in sales and purchase document, there is the status field that we users rely on based on when the status of that document becomes released. That is the identifier of saying that this document has been approved by all the people who wanted it. So your document will be open. When you send it for approval, it becomes pending approval. And when everybody approves it, then it becomes released. So in the sales and purchase document, it is simple to understand which document is ready to post. But if you go to the journals, like in this case, payment journal, let's say, it's hard to identify is this batch approved because there is no uh, identifier of that of what is the status of this batch. And then there's an option to set up line level approval on the batch. If that's enabled, then you need to check it line by line. Is it approved or not? So that becomes a little bit tricky in terms of identify which of these lines are approved and not. So it seems a good requirement. Maybe if time permits, we'll come back to this because I have an idea around it. I actually wanted, when I read this, I actually think that we should have a fact box here, which shows me what is the status of my batch or line in terms of approval if they are enabled. And I'll surely be interested in writing about this. If you don't get time into this, maybe I'll write it and send it to Sahil if he can utilize it. So moving ahead, the last question that we have for today was this one. And as I said earlier, I hide names if it is not coming from our form that we have in the Microsoft form area. So this was came from LinkedIn, and the question was around that there are things added in the BC14 world in the menu suite by the partner. And what the developer is trying to do is trying to find out which custom objects were added into the menu and wanted to get a list of all those objects which are in the menu. And I don't know what he wanted to do with that, because maybe he wanted to set the application area and users category based on only the items which are available in menu before they got uploaded. So what I did, this is all the time I find it a little bit fun, is I exported all the menu suite that they have into a text file, which every developer will be able to do, which is something like this. Now, reading this file from any other way, if you compare it with a Microsoft Cronus object set, a text file, you'll be able to figure it out. But there are so many things that are added into this area, like groups and things like that, which makes it hard to identify what are the custom objects which are added into this menu. But then we also need to understand that there is a pattern how this file is created. And what we'll try to do is kind of break or identify that pattern from PowerShell, which is my new thing these days for some reasons, because I'm majorly into upgrades, where PowerShell is becoming, more and more, as it is required more and more as we get into this BC world. So what we want to do first is we want to read this file, right? So if you go and search on Google how you read a file from PowerShell, we can just do it, get content of that file. So you can just copy the path of that file where it is, and it'll just read that text file for you if you need it. This is the file that I wanted to read. If I just hit enter, it'll start reading the whole file as it is open in Notepad, which is pretty simple, right? But now in this file, I want specific lines which I need, which is a object type and a object ID. Because if I can just get those out of this, then I know that I can put that info into an Excel and then filter it out based on the ID field, which is between 50,000 to 99,000. And the object type will be a bonus because then I know which object type it is. So, and this is just a pattern, right? So the pattern here is that anytime Microsoft adds an object in, a developer adds an object into the menu, this keyword is added into file of this pattern, which is a fixed pattern, run object type and run object ID, gets added whenever these objects are being added into the menu. Our intention is just to read these two lines, and we'll know what custom objects are there And then we can utilize that info either in Excel or any other tool that you want and identify which custom objects are there. So let's try to do it from PowerShell more or less. So now when we know that we can read the content of this file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this into a variable, which is, let's say, file data. Anything that is output of this query will fill in the data into this variable. And then in this, I can actually scan line by line by using a simple for each statement. And for each is also a keyword, I guess, that we can use now in Business Central. So I want to read every line. So what I'll say, for each line in my file that I read, do something, whatever that is, that I can write. So now for each line that's printed, I want to do certain stuff. And let's say I want to only display the lines which contain the word run object ID. So I can say, write to the host, file line, where this is a little bit different than how we used to do it in Nav or Business Central, where my text that I'm trying to read matches the pattern which is on object ID equals to. So in all the lines that are available in this file data, it will only print the content of those lines where there will be a match to this string, which is a pattern that we saw in that file. So if I run this code right now, it's actually printing everything, which is weird. Okay. Which not. Okay, that seems a little bit odd. I think this is how we filter it. The other way around that I know, as I said, this understanding this thing right now is I can actually do a if statement here and say if my file line, which is the line that I'm in right now, if it matches to the same pattern, then print that line. I don't need this condition in that case. Okay, if that line matches this, then print this. If this works this time. Okay, so this is working. So I now know which object IDs are added in this menu suite file, which are available, right? So I can just copy this data into Excel, but it'll be good if I also have the object type. So let's just append one more if condition into this using an or, yes, or, and then I say matches to this pattern. If this and this matches, then print the line which are there. Now I can select this, and it prints both of those factors. Now, if you want this output to be into an CSV, you can do that. If you want to just copy paste it into Excel, you can do that. Even you can go to the route of making it a little bit more complex and then actually generate this data into a tablix manner where object type is one column and object ID is one column. And that all is possible. So let me just find out the code that I was trying to write, which is also based on the similar lines that we have written. And I'll just paste it here. Here's the complete code, more or less. I'm pretty sure I can do something better here. I'm just doing it based on the minimum knowledge that I have about PowerShell. What I'm trying to do here is go up, edit the file as we did into this file data variable, as we were talking about it in the beginning. And then based on every line in that file, initially I created a table, which is just a table in this loop, which have two fields, object type and object ID. Then I ran through the same if condition as we just saw. And if the object type is null, which is initially it is empty, then I put the object type value from the line that I'm reading if it matches to the object type. And for object ID, the next line will be object ID. I put it into this variable called object type and object ID. And then using this counter, I'm pretty sure that the both of the variables are now set. And when both of them are set, which is line count matches to 2, then I'm writing those two variables into this table which I have created. And then it loops in and goes through the whole file. And at the end, it outs that file into a folder this. Let me go there first and see if that file exists or not. And if it does, then I'll just quickly delete this. The intention is that this file will be generated and the data will be exported into this text file. So now the script is running on the same file. The file seems to be generated. And this is the output. It got truncated here at the end. Maybe I have written something wrong for the second one. Object ID. It was working yesterday because I was trying to trim this up, but the trim was not working because it was generating some spaces at the end. And this should actually generate this. Let me see if I can see it here. Okay, it has the run object type and then there is no run object ID. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is possible. I might have missed something into this. But things like this, the idea is that the things like this, we should be start, as an I being an app developer for all these years, I always write in CAL code, and it is still possible. But what I'm saying is using PowerShell, that these things can be done more easily than going into deep CAL or AL knowledge of reading a text file, then storing that, and then identifying those patterns from the code. Because I, as a developer, always like to write these code segments that I can utilize in future. But then when I think about it now, where things are changing so rapidly, I actually trying to, when I see a pattern which I can write, then I'm thinking to write it in PowerShell if possible, because it makes it more easier to read, save, and not to consume an object ID per se, which is still a thing in Business Central, and make it more faster also. So the person who requested it, I'll just fix this and I'll send him. I'm pretty sure this was working yesterday. It'll work again. I just need to set this up, this another one. But I hope you get an idea that we should start shifting some of our development skills also toward PowerShell, because that seems more and more being part of your life, even if you are on SaaS. So think about automation APIs, which will be required as you get more and more customers into SaaS. You don't want to go into everybody's environment. And just to give you a simple example, change the first upgrade date every 6 months, because you want to test your custom extension before they actually gets upgraded. With one or two customers, it's still an option that you can go to their admin center and change that date to a future date. But think, when you have 500 customers, you want to do something automatic which can fetch that info or update that info in your admin center for your customers. And those admin APIs can also be consumed from PowerShell. So we also have to think from that perspective, that going forward, when we have more and more customers, how we can spend less time into these problems or updates, and make these processes automatic. So that was the last question, I guess, for today. Anything else? Otherwise, I wanted to open it up for ideas for topics for future weeks. If there are questions, I'll first take those, I guess. Any questions?
Hi, so I have a question.
Okay.
Actually, I am implementing multi-select on item card. Okay.
Multi-select on item card. Okay.
Yes. So yeah, I want to select multi-select a category. Okay, so I just create a table, a category table in which I have a ID and name, and I created a relation table in which I have a item ID, and against the item ID I have a multiple category ID. Okay. So how to save in the business center? Like, I'm not able to save from. I have popped on the item card UI category and select multi-select. I'm able to multi-select, but I'm not able to save. So how to save in the relation table?
So let me clarify. So the category that you are saying, is that the item category that is available by default,
No,
or is
no,
it a
not
custom field?
custom. Yes, I created a two table. One is a
Okay.
category, and second one is a relation ID, in which I have an item ID, and against the item ID I have a multiple category ID.
Okay, that makes sense. So there are multiple ways of handling this. As in, let me ask another clarifying question. What you want to do with that data? Is it something going somewhere else for some other processing, or it is just an informational per
Yeah,
item wise?
and other process, like through the API I want to save as well. Like from the UI
That's
I
okay.
want.
That's okay. But is that info is used somewhere else in the system, or it is just about the item?
No, just on the item only.
So let me give you an idea in the base. If that doesn't work for you, we can surely talk about it. And I'm pretty sure you have heard about attributes.
Yes.
Attributes are also flexible to have your custom attributes, right? So if I come here and go into my attributes, it should be somewhere. Let me go back. I was there. Let's see here. All right. We should have a fact box for attribute, otherwise here it is. So these are the default attributes: color, depth, width, height, and material description, right?
Yes.
You can also define your own custom attributes if you want. Okay. So when you come to attributes, you can surely define a new attribute, which is, you can say, new, and my attribute. You can also define what kind of input it will take. Is it a text value, integer value, int, decimal, or even options?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I say it's a plain text, and I click OK. Now users will be able to set my attribute on any item that they want. Okay. So if I come here and I say, oh, for this item, I need to set an attribute, and that attribute is my attribute, and the value is, no, because there is no lookup, because this is a text field. Now, do you want to store something like this, which is only available on item, or do you actually care what value it is, and then going forward have to utilize it in some transaction?
Maybe in future, but for now I want to have it on item card only.
Item card. Okay, so in that case, what you can do is you have a separate table, I'm pretty sure, as you said,
Yes, I have.
where you have a master of your categories that you have, right?
Yes.
Which is just a category code and category description.
Yes.
Plain and simple. Then you will have another table where it will be called, let's say, item category, my item categories, because item category is a table.
Yes. Yes.
Where you want to store for item 81896, which all categories were selected on the item.
Yes, correct.
Right? So now let's think about it. There is a lookup, let's say like this, where user can select a value, but then that lookup cannot be a normal lookup, because a normal lookup always allows you to select one value only, right? So it'll be something like how you do here, which is on items, you have seen these things, or maybe on customers. They should be somewhere on items. Item variants. This is also something like what you are talking about. It also shares the same relationship as you're talking about. The primary key of item variant table will be item number and then the code. So I say this is my V1 and this is my text. Okay? And this is my V2 and this is my text. These two variants are only for this item. I'll only be able to see it for these items. Right? When I switch to another item, there will be different variants. Simple enough. As far as the lookup or having it available here, you can actually create a flow field here. Let's say variant exist.
Flow field.
Right? Or number of variant exist. And which calculates the count of your item categories from your table. And because it's a flow field, when somebody will click on it like this, it will take you to the source table, filtered view, that you have all these item categories. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the user will enter the data from here, somewhere here, or you can also add a label on the page. And label always can be used as a small action, if you want to call it.
Okay.
So, like, let me go back to the code again. Yeah. So where are we? Here we are. Okay. So instead of this, if I come here on my main page, I can actually add a label in my layout. In my add first on my control one. And instead of adding a field or an action, because action will always go on the top, and field you have a limitation of single lookup, you can actually add a label. My label, and then this label can have a trigger which is on drill down or on lookup. On validate or what? Let me see. I I surely will have an example for you somewhere where I've used it. Let me find that for you. Okay, on my new PC where I'm moving, still moving things. Things are a little bit scattered. Other communities. Okay. Oh, here it is. Oh. So here what I've done, I just wanted to demo something in this session. So I created a page. Here is the page. So if you see here, what I'm doing is there are different fields, okay, in the page, but they are actually labels. So this is a label text here. It says which prints text builder CAN there. And on drill down of that field, what I've said is run a code unit. So you can also open up a page in that situation. And this actually comes up as a actual label, as a single line where you can hyperlink more or less, which when you click will take you to the different page. So to adding that label, you can just add as a field as I was showing you there, and then you utilize that label to navigate to the right screen if you want. Okay, so multi-selection, you can surely approach it from a different way. That is also possible. I have done those things. But if it is not required to be being complex, then I would rather choose the simpler way than going into the complex one.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else, anyone?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks. Darshan, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, hello sir. We discussed in previous session for hide or restrict send to button of custom report request page. Are you check any possibility for that or not?
I did check it. I was not able to find it. Maybe, and the reason is because on-prem there is a setting, as I was saying last time when we met, right?
Yes.
I'll still have to check more on that if it is possible or not.
Okay, I
But
tried.
go ahead.
Yes, I tried for base report. It working not for custom report. So I want to know it is possible or not.
Oh, you did try it for the base report?
Yes, it work for all base report, but not work for custom report.
If you can just send me a screenshot of what you did on my email,
No.
I'll surely review
Okay.
that.
Okay, I will send tomorrow.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, if not, do you guys want to put something on chat about what should we discuss going forward? I don't know everything, but maybe that will give me a list of things that I need to learn. So if you guys can type in things in chat, and then you can see them later. For now, yeah, if somebody wants to speak up, that's okay. It's not a limitation. Okay, Sam, you have anything that you think would be interesting to talk about further?
Well, I did have a request about a customer who wanted to process the unitary cost of an item per responsibility center. I didn't go further with it. It seemed a bit complex, really.
Okay.
Did you get the idea?
No, maybe I'm not able to hear. Can you type it in chat maybe, and then we'll surely see it. Anyone else Mansur sir, anything that you can think of that I can talk about? I can talk in going forward.
These days, I'm thinking about Power Platform, Power Automation, and all. So
Yeah, that's interesting thing. But I'm maybe pretty junior to you on that also. Our
no,
platform is
I'm just
senior to
beginner
you.
in that. So
Yeah, same here. I'm
okay.
also just trying to, play with it. Like I'm playing with
I,
these things these days.
yeah, I'm not saying PowerShell, but Power
Yeah, Power
Platform, Power
Automate. Yeah,
Automation.
Power
Yeah,
Automate, Power Flow.
yeah.
And
Flow.
Steve left us, but he was doing something about Power Automate / Flow last week.
Okay.
Yeah, all this now makes sense in Business Central. Having everything connected.
Right. Connected
Well,
work.
it's in the chat, Sarab.
Okay, cost per item per responsibility center.
Does that make sense?
I might need more inputs on what process the cost per item per responsibility center. Hmm.
Well, the cost isn't going to be isolated per location or variant. It's just per responsibility center.
Okay, that's something I'll have to think about. Okay, anything else, anybody? That you guys have something for me? Otherwise, see, the things are the things that we discuss in these meetings are either based on request from somebody, or it's just come from questions that are happening, or if there is something new in the product. And that's it, I guess. Sam, I was thinking about our discussion last week, everybody's discussion in the last meeting, that we should have it predefined if we can, agenda what we are going to discuss this week. But the complexity, as I'm stating right now, is that I actually don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. It will either based on questions that will come in the following week, or maybe something new that I've read or understood somewhere, or maybe based on the request that somebody will
So,
have.
Saurabh,
is it
I think this issue or concern has been raised earlier also, but
Yeah,
like I think you sent the invitation yesterday, right? So
yes,
for today, you sent the invitation yesterday. So
right.
were you clear yesterday when you sent
No.
this invitation? Okay, at that point also you were not clear, right?
But the thing is that I'm also switching this because Teams have provided this option to have webinars where I don't have to separately send the invite now.
Okay,
So next week there will be a registration page from the Teams or from the Microsoft Teams where people will be able to register, and you guys may get an invite tomorrow as soon as I set it up, because you guys are default attendee, most of you, and then
uh,
others will go there.
will it not be means just from the perspective of forgetting and all? Will it be possible to send it on Friday so that okay, tomorrow it is there, we remember it, and if you send it on Monday, by Saturday, means is there not a possibility of forgetting or something on that angle?
Okay, because what I was trying to do, and let me show you on Teams window, because that it makes my life more easier, I guess, more or less. But what happens with this new option is I can actually come here and say I'm doing a webinar, let's say, okay,
Okay. Mm.
and then I can add some default attendees. Let's say in this case, let it come here, and then I can say that the default attendees, let's say me,
Mm.
and which will be all of you in this
Okay.
scenario. And then I can actually customize the registration form here, which becomes a web page. So, which have the logo, the title, the event details, and all, which is normal, right?
Okay.
And then this meeting will be set up tomorrow with all the default attendees.
Fine.
And then anybody else who will be registering to this page in the week, they will automatically get added into it. So I'll not have to kind of rely on Friday that my Power Automate will work, and sometimes it breaks, and sometimes people input wrong things into their input forms. Like somebody will just put random things into those questions which are required for registration. So in the perfect world, at least 80% that Power Automate works, and then sometime I have to go manually when I don't see an invite, and then fix those issues, data issues, which people do by mistake or intentionally, I don't know, and then fix it.
Okay.
So with this option, I was seeing a light that I don't have to even worry about it going forward. I'll set it up on a Monday morning or Sunday evening, and people will just keep on registering, and then on Saturday we'll meet. So that was the plan.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So means you don't have any option to schedule that at what time the invite should be sent.
No, because okay, so let me do this week. What I'll do is when I set up the meeting, I'll only add myself as the default attendee because there is at least one person required. And then on Friday, I'll go and add all of you as default attendee. And let's see if that works or not.
If it is increasing your work, then I think we are okay with the sending it on Monday.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I guess
Okay.
the only thing that I was trying to do is kind of, yeah, but that makes sense. I can do it on Friday. I can add all the default attendees on Friday, and on Monday, which is tomorrow morning, what I'll do is I'll just set up the invites for everyone who's not a default attendee using this webinar thing, and then we'll see next Friday what happens. I hope there are no hiccups, but if there are, we'll learn something out of it.
Okay. Sounds interesting.
And Sam, you're saying something? Sorry.
Interfaces. You did say that we're going to speak about, interfaces as business central.
Okay, yeah, that seems interesting. So now I'll work on interfaces. That's something interesting, and that will take a good amount of time to understand. And if somebody knows, because the next in my personal list is to understand the new pricing engine. So if somebody knows it, feel free. The floor is open. Anybody can present here. It's not supposed to be me every week. And talk about the new pricing engine, how it is different from the old pricing engine, because eventually the old one will go away someday. But that's on my personal list to learn and understand the new one. Okay, that sounds good. If there is nothing else, then we can call it for today, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Saurabh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So,
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.